Hey everyone, welcome to Sporting News' 2022 NFL First Round Mock Draft. I'm Vinnie Iyer, and we're going to go through all 32 picks in the first round to see who your team might be selecting on the evening of April 28th. All right, first team on the clock. They were here last year as well. Number 1 overall. They picked Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. Now, they've got to think about defense. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've got the most picks in this draft, 12. So they got to go for the best player available that can help their organization. It was a disaster with Urban Meyer last year, so trying to clean it up with Doug Peterson and his coaching staff. So I think the best way that the Jaguars can go is not overthink this pick. Just go with someone that they've seen perform at a high level in college, rise up draft boards through his team's big run to the college football playoffs. A defensive stud here, Aiden Hutchinson, edge rusher, Michigan, goes to the Jaguars here at number 1 overall. All right, that was an easy start for sure. No-brainer. Now it gets a little tough. Already at number 2, the Detroit Lions, one of 2 picks here. They'll also pick again at number 32 overall. That's the pick they acquired from the Rams in the Matthew Stafford trade. This is their own pick from just being the Detroit Lions and not being very good last year. So again, they can't go wrong with too many players here because the Lions team needs, you look down, pretty much everything, maybe with the exception of wide receiver, running back, and tight ends. So the offensive skill positions look okay. The offensive line is also pretty good here in Detroit. So it's all about the defense here. They got a defensive back as their coordinator, Aaron Glenn. They got to take the best defensive back available in this draft. And Kyle Hamilton of Notre Dame is the guy to me. Safety, they usually don't go this high, but looking at what the Lions could use, a cleanup man on the back end, a guy that can also help in extra coverage here for them. Kyle Hamilton just makes a ton of plays. If you watched him for the Fighting Irish, you know he was everywhere, doing everything, and that's what Kyle Hamilton will do for the Detroit Lions as their number 2 overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. All right, we're up to the number 3 pick here, and that belongs to the Houston Texans, another team with multiple picks in the first round after the big Deshaun Watson trade with the Browns. They decided to keep Laremy Tunsil at left tackle here in front of, right now, Davis Mills at quarterback. They could still look to upgrade it there this offseason, but looking at the right side, it's pretty weak opposite Laremy Tunsil, and the best position they could go for here is offensive tackle. Excellent pass protector, excellent run blocker, the heart and soul of Alabama's offense. We're going with Evan Neal there. To be their right tackle right now could take over for Tunsil in time, but right now, this is the best pick on the board for the Texans. Evan Neal, offensive tackle, Alabama. All right, we're at number 4 here, and this player was in the conversation for number 1 with Aiden Hutchinson for a while. Some people have him dropping down the boards, but you still see a high upside player in this guy. They can get after the quarterback, disrupt some things, a lot of energy, extremely intelligent as well to be a hybrid player here and get after the quarterback. It's Kayvon Thibodeau, the edge rusher from Oregon. The Jets will be ecstatic to have him at number 4. Another team, again, picking twice in this first round. We actually have 8 teams that are not picking in this first round. And the Jets, another team that is in position to double up here early in the draft. Robert Saleh needs a pass rusher who could be his version of Nick Bosa in New York. You got to go with Kayvon Thibodeau. Edge rusher, Oregon for the Jets. Stays in green, going from Oregon in Eugene all the way over to East Rutherford to play for the Jets. All right, we're up to another New York team here, number 5, and another team with 2 picks in the first round. Theirs comes from the trade with the Bears last year as the Bears moved up to get Justin Fields. The Giants are on the clock here at number 5. They're going to keep their eye on Evan Neal if he slips there. They moved on from Nate Solder at left tackle. They do like their right tackle there, Andrew Thomas, potentially moving there if they can find someone who can take over on the left side here for the Giants. It's a new offensive-minded coach, Brian Daboll. It's a new GM also from Buffalo, Joe Shane. They're going to stick with Daniel Jones right now, quarterback, but you got to protect Daniel Jones better. You got to block for Saquon Barkley better. So they also go offensive line here with a different player, and that's Ikem Ekwonu there. The Giants take him at number 5 overall in Sporting News' first round mock draft. So pretty easy. We're through 5 picks here. Again, you can check out my complete 7-round mock draft there at sportingnews.com. Now we're up to number 6, and that puts the Carolina Panthers on the clock. Now, they'll be a little disappointed if Evan Neal and Ike Ekwonu are off the clock, but they'll still think about an offensive tackle here. They've been talked a lot about getting a quarterback here. They've said they're going to stick with Sam Darnold for 1 more year. We'll see about that, but it's too early to me for the Panthers to go after quarterback at number 6 overall. They got to stick with their plan for the offensive line. It was terrible last year. They do have Taylor Moton, who they like, but I think he's a little bit overrated there as a tackle. You got to get a stud there. So I think there's one more player that can fit the bill here after Neal and Ekwonu are off the board. That's Charles Cross of Mississippi State. We're going to take him at number 6 overall. The Panthers should be happy about that here to help their really shaky offensive line in front of Sam Darnold here in 2022. All right, we're up to the Giants again. We know, again, all these teams that have multiple first-round picks can move up and down the board here. They can try to stockpile more picks, or they could package them to go after a player they really like. But for now, I think we're going to keep teams where they are because, look, there's not one player that you're going to bang the table for to say we're going to move up big time for. I think that might come later in this draft, but early, still, the Giants are looking for best player available for their needs, and Derek Stingley Jr., the cornerback of LSU, is going to do that because they've been toying with the idea of moving on from James Bradbury. He's been pretty good for them. They signed him from the Panthers to be a top corner. He's been that, but he's now a little expensive for this team. They can get a big playmaker to replace him. Derek Stingley Jr. has some injury issues that are a little concerning, but he has a lot of talent, a lot of playmaking natural upside. He has a good pedigree, we know, with that last name. So Derek Stingley Jr. is the pick. So the Giants, with their double up here, go offensive line and corner. Derek Stingley Jr., number 7 overall to New York. All right, we're up now to the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons could go in many different directions here. We know they have multiple needs. So that's, again, the theme of this draft. That's what makes it so hard here to pick the top 10. These teams can go in so many ways with what they're doing. So we're going to look for someone who can line up in different places. We don't have to look very far for the Falcons. Let's tap into that Georgia Bulldogs defense, shall we? There's a lot of great players on the defense. We don't know who's going to be the first guy taken from this group, but one guy has risen up the boards really fast because he's versatile. He can play defensive end. He can play defensive tackle. You can line him up at outside linebacker. But really, Atlanta has to look just down the road to Athens to find a player that they'll really love here. It's Trayvon Walker, edge rusher, DT/DE from Georgia, goes to the Falcons, stays in state here. Great pick here and great value at number 8 for the Falcons in our mock draft. All right, we're up to the Seattle Seahawks here in this draft, and they weren't on the clock in the first round, but they made that big deal with the Broncos, shipped Russell Wilson away. Right now, their starting quarterback would be Drew Lock, who they got back in the trade from the Broncos. I don't think they can go to the season with Drew Lock. It's just not going to happen here as their number 1. Their actual second quarterback is Jacob Eason, and they got him from the Colts. So really not a lot of inspiring options here for the Seahawks if they wait and look for a quarterback elsewhere. I like Malik Willis. I think he has a lot of qualities that Wilson had. A little undersized, but strong arm, very mobile. From Liberty, was once at Auburn, so he's got some good big school pedigree as well. But I like Malik Willis and his upside. So you got to give the Seahawks the first quarterback on the board, and I'd rather have him than Kenny Pickett. I think Malik Willis is a special talent. I like not just his athletic skill set, but I think his leadership, intangibles, all that good stuff is there to qualify him for the first quarterback off the board in 2022. Malik Willis, quarterback, Liberty, to the Seahawks here as the first QB off the board. All right, we're up to the Jets here at number 10. They just got Kayvon Thibodeau, so they should be thrilled about that pick. They have a cornerstone edge rusher. Now, let's look to see what they could pick up here. Well, they also need someone on the back end of this pass defense, and I know they're not too bad. They did pick up DJ Reed, signed him in free agency from the Seahawks, but he's more a number 2 complementary corner, so it's time to take another corner off the board. He was known as Ahmad Gardner for the Cincinnati Bearcats. What a great run and story that was there to see the Bearcats in the college football playoff. But he's now known as Sauce Gardner because that's how good of a talent he showed at the Combine. A lot of sauce. He does do that by making a lot of plays all over the field here. So if you can't get Derek Stingley Jr. in this draft, you got to look at Sauce Gardner, and that's who the Jets take at number 10 overall in our mock draft. All right, now we're up to the Washington Commanders. We know they have a new nickname, the Commanders. We know they have a new quarterback, Carson Wentz. Now they need a new playmaker here to complement Terry McLaurin. I like Terry McLaurin as a player. He's a very good all-around receiver, but he's not really a number 1 to me. He's a very good possession guy, can stretch the field occasionally, but they need an alpha there to be Carson Wentz's true go-to guy. And McLaurin is going to be all the more dangerous if he can operate as a number 2. So I'm feeling it here for the Commanders to take the best wide receiver on the board, and for me, it's Chris Olave of Ohio State. You look at Garrett Wilson, his former teammate there in Columbus, looks pretty good. Jamison Williams was also his former teammate before he transferred to Alabama, but Olave just has that dynamic element. We know he lit the Combine on fire with his speed. Let's get a guy that's going to stretch the field here for Carson Wentz. Chris Olave, number 11 overall to the Commanders, wide receiver, Ohio State. All right, we're up to number 12 here, and that puts the Minnesota Vikings on the clock here. And they just re-signed Patrick Peterson. They're really hurting at corner here. They need some help. It's a new defensive scheme they're breaking in. They moved on from Mike Zimmer, new GM, new coach, everything screams, let's push this toward a rebuild, get some more youth in here. And I really like this corner as well. We talked about Derek Stingley being established as top corner for a while. Sauce Gardner having a meteoric rise. Well, this next corner also has had a big rise. Andrew Booth Jr. of Clemson. He's kind of established himself as the number 3 at this position. The Vikings need help in a lot of places. They could go best player available. But for me right now, that player is Andrew Booth Jr. So good pick here for the Vikings. The Vikings have had really good drafts in the past with Rick Spielman. I think they continue that with their combination here of Kevin O'Connell there and looking at what they can do defensively. They'll be tempted to go offense and wide receiver here, but Andrew Booth Jr. is a pick to the Vikings, number 12 overall. All right, we're back up to the Texans. They're on the clock here at number 13. What can they do? Well, they do have a defensive-minded head coach. It is their promoted defensive coordinator, Lovie Smith. So he takes over. So he's got to have an eye on getting an edge rusher here as well. An edge rusher, by the way, is the strongest position in this draft. But you want to jump on some of these elite options early while you can. So you look at the Texans early. They took care of their offensive front there with pass protection in Evan Neal. So they need to get a guy that can just get after the quarterback, disrupt things. They haven't had that type of player at this high of a level with some freakish athletic quality since J.J. Watt. It's time to go after a fast-rising player on the board. Jermaine Johnson, 2 out of Florida State, edge rusher, goes to the Houston Texans. So good work on taking care of both fronts here early for the Texans with their 2 first-round picks. All right, we're up to the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens could do quite a few things here as well. They're typically a great drafting team. We know that for a long time with just their scouting department. It goes back to what they had with Ozzie Newsome here. It's just been great to see the Ravens draft over the years. They usually do not throw away their first-round pick, with the exception of taking some wide receivers. One has worked out now of late with Rashad Bateman. Marquise Brown has been pretty good as well. They're not going to take another wide receiver in the first round in this particular draft. At number 14, I think they have to look at center and say, look, this is a weak spot. We need to go after a guy that can remind us a little bit of Marshall Yanda, except playing in a position right over. And this guy's actually been mentored by Marshall Yanda, a longtime interior offensive line stud, a potential future Hall of Famer there for the Ravens. They're going to go with Tyler Linderbaum, go to the same school, Iowa, get that center spot to short up here. They lost Bradley Bozeman in free agency. Makes a lot of sense. Ravens are storing the strength of that offensive line. Tyler Linderbaum, center, Iowa, to Baltimore at number 14 overall. All right, let's go to number 15. We're almost halfway through this draft, and now this is a team that wasn't picking here just a few days ago. The Eagles and Saints made a big trade here. So Eagles wanted some future help. They had 3 first-round draft picks. Now they're down to 2, but they still hold number 15 overall. This used to belong here to the Saints, and what they were going to do here was maybe look at some help at quarterback. Well, we're going to give the quarterback to the Eagles. Yep, this is our first shocker on the clock here. We're going to give the Eagles Kenny Pickett of Pittsburgh. And this might be a little bit of a curveball, but I don't think they're completely sold on Jalen Hurts. So the way we know this is that, look, when the general manager, Howie Roseman, overpraises a player, and that goes for any team, you know they're trying to cover up something here. And I think they want a more traditional pocket passer. Like Jalen Hurts as a runner, but the accuracy and the arm strength, a lot of question marks there. I think he's a big reason why they weren't so effective with the downfield passing game. They need to get more traditional with their quarterback, and also a guy that can still give them that running element. Kenny Pickett, first shocker of this mock draft, and really could be a shocker there when it comes to the real time when these teams are on the clock on April 28th. Now that leaves the Saints here. What do they do at number 16? They might have been thinking about a quarterback with their move to make that big trade with the Eagles to position themselves a little bit better to get that quarterback, but remember, there's good quarterback values here in the second round that they can also target. They also have Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. They might be okay going with that situation here in 2022. But what they need is some weapons. And you look at Michael Thomas, he's returning, but is he going to be the same type of Michael Thomas? Do they really trust Marquez Callaway beyond being a big play threat? I don't think so. They need more of a number 1 profile here that can complement Michael Thomas. Thomas is a possession receiver. They need a guy that is more of a big playmaker with some speed on the outside. Complete receiver, good technician as well. I'm going with Garrett Wilson here, and that's a really good pick for the Saints to get that passing game up to speed and really connect with the arm of Jameis Winston. So Garrett Wilson, the other Ohio State receiver, goes number 16 overall at the midpoint of our 2022 first-round mock draft. All right, we're now in the second half of our first round here, and it's the Chargers on the clock, and there's been one player attached to the Chargers all the way through. He's pretty much been the choice I've given them for many mocks in a row since after the season. Their biggest weakness by far, this is a team that was built to maybe go after a big run in the playoffs, but quarterback, fine. They got Justin Herbert, an elite stud. They got a lot of weapons there. Offensive line is great. Got some great picks last year. Rashawn Slater has really shored up their offensive line. They also got Asante Samuel Jr. to help with their sub packages, but now you need a guy that can be beefy and really help your run defense, because this was atrocious last year. Watching the Chargers just wilt against the run was the biggest reason why they weren't a playoff team. They got to shore things up. They've done some really good things in free agency defensively. They got Khalil Mack in a big trade with the Bears. They got J.C. Jackson, the top free agent corner on the market. They also got Sebastian Joseph Day. Tells you that they do want to upgrade their defensive tackle group. So you got to be thrilled here if you're Brandon Staley, their defensive-minded head coach. Take Jordan Davis, the big dude from Georgia. So our second Georgia defensive player, joining Trayvon Walker off the board from our national champions, goes to the Chargers. Jordan Davis, defensive tackle, to the Chargers at number 17. All right, we're back to the Eagles on the clock. Yeah, this is going to be a common theme of this draft. Teams going on the clock twice and trying to figure out what to do to get the right 1-2 punch and the combination there and try to address as many positions that they really would need as possible. So let's look at what the Eagles might do here with this pick. Hey, what about Georgia's defense again? Yeah, we might have a Georgia defense run that really come to fruition here in the first round. And I think you look at 18, the Eagles need some linebacker help. This has been a position that's been rather weak for this defense for some time now. A guy that can make a lot of plays all over the field. He's small, but he makes up for it with a big game. Great leader, great playmaker here. I think he's the best linebacker in this draft because he's just going to get after it every day and also going to be a guy that's going to watch over your defensive scheme for a long time. It's Nakobe Dean, your linebacker from Georgia. They can put him anywhere, middle, strong side, weak side, doesn't matter. He's the guy. So Nakobe Dean, linebacker, Georgia, number 18 overall to the Eagles. And we're back up to the Saints. So these teams made the trade, and now the Saints have 2 picks. The Eagles are down to 2 from 3. So what can the Saints do with this one? Well, they did lose Terron Armstead, their left tackle, in free agency. That was a big blow. They still have Ryan Ramczyk at the right tackle here. You knew they were not going to be able to keep Terron Armstead with a really bad salary cap situation, so they can rebound here. So it's been a while since we've called an offensive lineman's name here on the clock. We had the Ravens take the last one with Tyler Linderbaum at center. The Saints need someone who can potentially take over at left tackle for Terron Armstead, and that choice here is Trevor Penning. Really like this kid out of Northern Iowa. A lot of size, a lot of great athletic upside. I think he can be much like the small school sensation that Armstead was. I think you can see Trevor Penning totally delivering for the Saints to that capacity. So really good pick here. So address offense twice. They get the receiver there with Garrett Wilson, and now they get Trevor Penning here, number 19 overall to the Saints. All right, we're up to number 20, and it might be time to think about another quarterback. We had Malik Willis, to recap, to the Seahawks at number 9. Then you had the Eagles pulling off the shocker at number 15 and taking Kenny Pickett from in-state at Pitt as the second quarterback off the board. Now, people are saying this quarterback class is rather weak. Yes, does it stack up to other ones that we've seen? But I don't think so. But you look at the talent overall, I think if they get in the right system with the right team, these guys can all be really successful. And that's going to give them an opportunity here. If they slide a little bit on the board, get to a team that was in the playoffs last year. They made it with Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers, but we know Roethlisberger's arm was falling off. It was pretty much a noodle arm at the end of his career before he retired. They need a guy that can give them a little bit element of athleticism as well. So I'm going with Desmond Ridder here of Cincinnati. I really like this kid. He just exudes confidence. He's been around for a while. He leads a very successful program. I think Mike Tomlin's going to like his makeup as well as the leader of his team. So Desmond Ridder, the quarterback of Cincinnati, love that he can throw the ball downfield, strong, efficient arm, but also can get you the run in yards that you need here when needed, and also be elusive in the pocket to buy time. So Desmond Ridder, quarterback Cincinnati, 20th overall in our mock draft to the Steelers. All right, we're up to now our 21st pick. This is the New England Patriots. They also snuck into the playoffs as a wild card. Didn't last long. They need to get Mac Jones some help here. Now, N'Keal Harry didn't work out as a first-round pick. He's buried in their depth chart at wide receiver. So I think they're going to be a market for the best wide receiver available. We talked about Olave going early in this draft. Then we had Wilson. This was their teammate until he transferred to Alabama. It turned out to be a great decision because he had a better showcase there with that Alabama offense working with Bryce Young. Mac Jones didn't get a chance to play with this kid, Jameson Williams. He's coming off a major injury at the end of that season in the playoffs for Alabama, but he'll be fine, good to go. Alabama, Nick Saban, and Bill Belichick are tight. He's always going to feel good about taking an Alabama player. So Jameson Williams is the choice here for the Patriots, wide receiver Alabama at number 21 overall. And now we're at number 22. Did something happen big with the Packers? Yeah, it did. Davante Adams was the guy moving on here in a blockbuster trade. Aaron Rodgers, after all the drama that we saw, returning with the highest paid quarterback contract in this league. But he lost his go-to guy, cost him his go-to guy. The Packers could not afford Davante Adams here. So I think the Packers might be doubling up on wide receiver. A little bit of foreshadowing here for you in the mock draft. They got an extra first-rounder there. One guy that's been rising up boards, and I think he's just a beast here. If you're looking at 6'5", great hands, a lot of ability to make plays here. He can be the number one outside here for Aaron Rodgers. Packers really need to get wide receiver help. They cannot go to the season with Al Lazard as their best receiver, especially after losing Marquez Valdes-Scantling as well as Davante Adams here in free agency. So Drake London, wide receiver, big target here for Rodgers to put on the outside and potentially be his new Adams, number 22 overall. We're up to number 23. 3 here. We talked about J.J. Watt early in this draft, where the Texans were trying to find that type of energy. Watt does play for the Cardinals, but he's getting a little bit older. He's slowing down a little bit. Ended last season with an injury. They need to get someone versatile up front who can disrupt things. They haven't been really that happy with Zach Allen. He's an edge player they got from Boston College for their 3-man front. So I think they have to go for that type of player that can be disruptive and versatile. Now, a little bit different than Trayvon Walker and Jordan Davis. He can play the run as well as Davis at times. He can actually go after the quarterback the way that Trayvon Walker can at times. Good hybrid player here. So Devontae Wyatt, his name is a little bit different from J.J. Watt by 1 letter, but he plays a similar position and he can be just as disruptive here for the Cardinals here. So another Georgia defensive player off the board. It was like they had a really great defense or something that was transcended and headed to the pros, and you're going to hear that a lot in this draft. A lot of Georgia defenders off the clock. Devontae Wyatt is the latest one here. Defensive tackle, defensive end here for the Cardinals at number 23 overall. All right, we're up to number 24 on the clock, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. Always an interesting decision for the Joneses here. Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, what are they going to do here? They lost Connor Williams, however, in free agency. They also said goodbye to Lael Collins. They moved on from him. They're a bit cap-strapped, so they had to make some changes up front. They got to go for an interior lineman here. So we had Tyler Linderbaum go at center. Now it's time to tap into the best pure guard in this draft. And they can look down the street to College Station, a little bit more down the street here, but Texas A&M, he had a great season there for Jimbo Fisher, blocking on the interior. Kenyon Green is a choice here, plug-and-play starter immediately there for the Cowboys at number 24 overall. All right, we're up to number 25 overall, and if you've been following my mock drafts at Sporting News all the way through the 7-rounder, this player's been pretty consistent to the Bills for a while now. They did lose Levi Wallace as expected in free agency, their number 2 corner to Tre'Davious White. We know the Chargers up front there had to get a defensive tackle to beef up their run defense. The Bills need a little bit more pop in the back end here there for their secondary on the outside, playing off Tre'Davious White. I like this player a lot. He fits their scheme with Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott quite a bit. Trent McDuffie, cornerback Washington, goes to the Bills here at number 25 overall. All right, we're up to number 26. The Titans have been a team with good success stashing players. So going after players, if there's some issue there with their injury or off the field here, that they can pick that player up and know that in a year or two, they're going to be special. And we saw that with Jeffrey Simmons. We saw that with Harold Landry. It was a bit of a work in progress with these players. It didn't get the immediate results, so they're patient. They're a good patient drafting team here with John Robinson, their GM. So makes a lot of sense to go after one of those players here that unfortunately had a tough injury there at his pro day. It was David Ojabo, the running mate of Aiden Hutchinson, Michigan. He really rose up the boards here. Just a lot of energy, active pass rusher here. So love this pick here for the Titans. Get him there with Harold Landry here to disrupt things up front. And you can wait a while if you need to with Ojabo. If you have to wait till 2023 to get that impact, that's fine. But he should be around to help them later in the year. And I think that Titans are going to be very much in play in the AFC playoff picture. So maybe a guy that can help them situationally at first, but can round out to a really good complementary pass rusher to Harold Landry, a edge rusher, David Ojabo from Michigan to the Titans at number 26 overall. All right, we're slowly reaching the end here. Now we're getting to the teams that were up the top of the food chain here in the NFC. In the AFC, we're up to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 27. The Buccaneers need some pass rush depth. Jason Pierre-Paul got a little older and kind of faded here. They do have some other guys that they do like behind Shaq Barrett, but really need to upgrade that for sure. I do like a Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. He's a good complimentary pass rusher, but look at George Karlaftis out of Purdue. Very freakish type qualities here. I think people are hoping that he can refine his game here in the NFL. And that's why he falls behind a lot of these pass rushers that went on the board earlier. But we said how strong this position is. So by no means Karlaftis falling to number 27 is indictment on him. It's just how good these other players are, including Jermaine Johnson and David Ojabo, who really rose up draft boards ahead of Karlaftis. So this guy is a good situational pass rusher at first for the Buccaneers, learning behind Shaq Barrett. But now they have Todd Bowles as their head coach. He's going to love having another guy that can get after quarterback. George Karlaftis, edge rusher, Purdue, a lot of size, a lot of speed. They can harness that into a big-time playmaker and pass rusher. Number 27 overall to the Buccaneers. All right, we're up to number 28, and I told you earlier that the Packers might be interested in doubling up in wide receiver because they lost Devontae Adams. He was their alpha outside that made a lot of plays all the way through the red zone, and they can still get that here with Drake London and his big catch radius out of USC. But they need a guy that can fill in for MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, to be that big field stretcher, take advantage of Aaron Rodgers' big arm outside. I think Al Lazard probably best suited to be in the slot here. So this player I've liked for a while. A little bit undersized, but he can flat out fly, make big plays, vertically stretch the field. I'm going to give the Packers here Jahan Dotson, wide receiver, Penn State, at number 28 overall. Now, another team that you might have heard that lost a wide receiver in a big trade here, it was the Kansas City Chiefs. They traded Tyreek Hill. So these were the biggest two shockers of the offseason. I know there are a lot of quarterbacks that moved, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, on and on. But really, to me, Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill being traded were the biggest shockers, showing that teams cannot afford paying a lot for their quarterback and their wide receiver. So the Chiefs are going to try to find his replacement here, a guy that can make some big plays here. So they can go in many directions, and I think they can go a little bit different than the body style of Tyreek Hill. They do have Mecole Hardman. Remember, there's a bit of Hill-like qualities in Hardman. They also picked up Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, so a lot of hyphenated guys there. So MVS goes from the Packers to the Chiefs, but they need a guy that can use his size, position himself there to be a bit of a hybrid player for Andy Reid and help Patrick Mahomes. So we're going to go with this pick. Again, a guy that a bit of a lightning rod because he kind of slowed down at the combine, but Chiefs need a guy that has that big catch radius, can make things after the catch happen here the way Travis Kelce can. So that makes sense to take Treylon Burks here out of Arkansas at number 29 overall with their first of two picks in the first round. Well, the Chiefs are on the clock again, so they can take their sweet old time making 29 and 30 here on April 28th. Where do they go? Well, the other position the Chiefs could get some help at is pass rusher. They did have Melvin Ingram, but he's moved on. He was very helpful to what they want to do up front with Frank Clark and Chris Jones to get after the quarterback. Frank Clark, they were able to keep here with an adjusted contract, but they're going to have to probably move on from him soon with how expensive he is. So here's a player that's risen up draft boards as well. Told you about edge rusher being the deepest position in this class. Well, looking at Boye Mafe, just taking the draft season by storm here with his combine performance and his pro day, and really before then at the All-Star games, really making a name for himself. Boye Mafe of Minnesota. Really like this kid. I think he's got good qualities here for what this defense wants with Steve Spagnuolo. So Boye Mafe, the edge rusher, after the Chiefs take a wide receiver at number 29, they take Boye Mafe at number 30 here for Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo under their general manager, Brett Veach, who does a great job of replacing young players here with the next generation. I think Burks and Mafe, excellent 1-2 punch of picks for them as the penultimate team making two picks here in the first round. Number 31, what do the Cincinnati Bengals do? I think people are tired about hearing about the Bengals always have to go after an offensive line. They could have taken Penei Sewell last year with their early first-round pick. They decided Jamar Chase. We know how that ended up. He was the Sporting News Offensive Rookie of the Year. Big year for sure for Jamar Chase playing with one Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow lost one of his trusty guys, C.J. Uzomah. He signed with the Jets here in free agency. Drew Sample is a blocking tight end. They did pick up Hayden Hurst. He's also a blocking tight end there, the former Falcons first-round pick. So they can go a bit luxury for the Bengals. So after going necessity, really turning their team around so quickly with Joe Burrow to get to the Super Bowl, let's get another playmaker for the Bengals, shall we? Let's go Trey McBride, the tight end of Colorado State. People might see this a bit of a reach, but hey, the Bengals are trying to win a Super Bowl. They're in a very competitive division. Get another playmaker to put Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. We're going with the tight end out of Colorado State, Trey McBride. I think the best overall player at that position here, and the Bengals are going to love him in that offense with Joe Burrow. That takes us to our number 32 overall pick and our final pick and our final team picking twice. Well, they're on the clock here. And the Rams gave us this pick. They're the Super Bowl champions. The Lions are not the Super Bowl champions. They needed to get another good pick here to close the draft here. So there's a player that you might know that has been in a lot of mock drafts earlier in the first round. He kind of fell here just based on the position he plays. And teams can always feel they can get a linebacker and someone can play on the second level at any points in the draft. There are a lot of good players there that you can target in the second and third round. But Lions need to just go for talent. Infuse some more talent here in their defensive back seven. So Aaron Glenn is going to love this first round because we got Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame, can make a lot of plays. We're going with another one of those guys, this time one level higher at the second level at linebacker, Devin Lloyd out of Utah. He's now the best player available on our big board. Lions should run and turn to the draft card with Devin Lloyd if he's the guy that's still there at number 32 overall. Devin Lloyd rounds out our first round mock draft. Here at Sporting News, they're at the Lions pick at 32. So great job by all these teams. Hopefully your teams will do the same here in the first round, making all the great picks that they need to improve their teams in 2022. For Sporting News' mock draft, first round, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Go check out our mock drafts only at sportingnews.com.